Good afternoon. I'm Dan DeRose with 19 News Now, coming to you from our digital desk. It's time to have a conversation about TikTok and its future in the United States. Congress last night passed an aid package. It was really centered around getting money and aid to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. But as often happens in Washington, there was another piece tacked on to that aid bill, and that is trying to get the parent company of TikTok to sell or face ban in the United States. Keep in mind, the federal government has already banned its federal employees from using TikTok. There is concern about how much control the Chinese government has over the company of TikTok. The company that owns TikTok is known as ByteDance. That's B-Y-T-E as in gigabyte. But there is a lot of influence or supposed influence from the Chinese Communist government on TikTok. The fears, and we'll get into those in a little bit, is how much control the government has. Chinese government has said that it would need to sign off on any sale of ByteDance and that they are not in favor of that. The legislation passed last night gives 9 months to ByteDance to make a decision before it is banned. So what does this mean for the 170 plus million users of TikTok here in the United States? We're going to bring in law professor Annette Alon-Beck. She is a professor at Case Western Reserve University School of Law. Professor, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. And I learned that President Biden just signed a law as well. So this is finally approved.
Yeah, it's been approved by the president, signed a little bit earlier, which means the clock, sorry for the pun, is ticking on TikTok. What does this mean for people who love TikTok, who spend hours and hours watching those short videos on the social media platform? What does this really mean?
Well, let's go over the different scenarios. First, if ByteDance will divest, meaning if TikTok USA will be bought by a different entity, by a US entity, and ownership will change, then that's not really going to affect the users as much. But they have 270 days to do that. If they choose not to, and they're going to sue instead, and some people say that we should gear up for a lawsuit over First Amendment concerns, then the US government can decide to just disconnect the app altogether. And it's not only going to affect users, it's also going to affect companies and commerce. Think about all the companies, small businesses that are using TikTok to really approach their audiences. So this is going to have a huge, I think, ramifications for those audiences that are going to be affected. But I think there are national security concerns, and I'm surprised that it took 4 years for this to happen. So I've been waiting for this. I wrote about this 4 years ago already. I've been monitoring this issue.
Before we get to, and I want to get into that, why there is this fear over TikTok, I want to ask a little bit of clarification. So if ByteDance does decide to sue, if this lawsuit does come up, and obviously it wouldn't work quickly enough to get in within that time limit, would the U.S. government disconnect it during the lawsuit, or would the government
I don't know. It's an if. It will depend on the court. The question is, what would the court order?
Okay.
I don't have a crystal ball, and also
Sure.
whether they're able to do it technically as well, right? And the other thing that you should always remember is that we have VPNs, so people could also bypass that. So I don't know how they're going to go about that as well. So it's a really complicated issue. You have the legal issues, you have the technology issues, the business issues. So it depends on which aspect you're looking at.
Let's talk about the fear that you brought up. This is a company that claims it is not run by the Chinese government, but there is clearly some influence. Why, and the average user is probably saying, I watch people dance on this app. I watch people be funny on this app. Why would I ever have to worry about it being dangerous?
That's a great question, and there's some research that has been done. I was actually been speaking about that with other researchers from the field, that TikTok is designed much better than any of the other apps. It reaches the target audience and you're able to, you don't even have to have a community. You're able to be fed certain information that they think they're aggregating information on you, and they're feeding you certain content that they think you're going to like. And the question is there some sort of messaging that is also being fed to people? I think that's part of the concern. That's one concern. The second concern is the information that they're getting on you, right? What are your preferences? Are they using AI to gather information on you, to collect information on you as citizens about their habits, about where they go, their operations, what are they doing? So again, even with this, there's so many concerns. And that is one with regards to content. Are they influencing certain content that is being delivered to you and then changing your views? Perhaps. I'm not saying it happens, but that's the concern. Another concern is the monitoring and tracking your information. What is happening with that information? Is that happening? Again, I'm not a national security expert, but those are the types of concerns that they're worried about.
So and we're having a conversation with Professor Anat Alon-Beck. She is a law professor at Case Western Reserve University. And let me be devil's advocate. What do I care if the Chinese government knows that I buy ice cream from a certain place, that I go to certain restaurants and they're tracking my GPS? Why should the average consumer care about that?
Well, there's different things with regards to privacy overall that you would care. One is, what are they doing with the information? Are they creating a certain profile about you? Do they know the way you think, what your habits are? Which companies are going to buy that information after all? How is that information going to be used or targeted? Are they able to get other information as a result of that with regards to where you travel, where you go, what happens here? Again, I would think about those types of information. Is it going to be sold to, for example, if you have a child, right, and they're aggregating that information, are they creating a certain profile? Are they going to sell it to insurance companies? Are they going to do other things that we can't even think about with regards to that? And those are overall privacy concerns with regards to national security. Are they trying to later use that information to influence you through certain content that you might be exposed to? I'm not sure, but those are some of the things that are being discussed in the policy.
There's another word that keeps getting thrown around, and it seems to be a very dangerous word: weaponizing. How could someone, if the Chinese government so chose, how would they weaponize something like TikTok?
Again, with regards to, we could see in other wars, for example, with the war with Ukraine, there was a lot of research that was done on certain governments feeding propaganda and information with regards to the war and how people should think about the war, even on other platforms, not just TikTok. And so you would see how they would feel that, that this platform, let's think about it as a platform, this network is controlled by a foreign government. And then what kind of information are people exposed to as a result? Are they influencing policy as a result of saying that's how you should think about this project or about this war, or about this policy? That's the concern. And there's been a lot of research that's already been done, even on other platforms, by the way, that's showing that some governments are paying to change public opinion with regards to certain wars. So that's definitely a concern with regards to national security.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's very complicated, especially when you consider that the people that use TikTok are literally just watching funny videos, and to think of it as this much more devious purpose somewhere down the road. Professor.
Well, there were reports of kids asked to, and again, that needs to be investigated, to do stuff to themselves, to commit suicide. Some kids committed suicide. There's a lot of investigation there. So again, those cases need to be brought forward, and we need to see what happened there and if those allegations were correct. But if they are, those are severe allegations that there have been all kinds of experiments as well. So again, I'm not going to say whether it happened or not, but those are some of the things that also were brought up in the media.
Professor, we're going to wrap up our conversation. We always give our guests the final word here. How should people view the next 9 months, and what do you see happening? And as you said, you don't have a crystal ball, but what should we watch to happen in the next 9 months when it comes to TikTok?
So a few things I think are going to happen. One is definitely there's going to be litigation with regards to this. And if I was a business owner, I would start thinking, how do I reach my audience, my target audience, my customers? How do I communicate with them in other avenues? Just in the event, I'm not saying it's going to happen, and I'm not sure how it's going to happen technically, but what if then I get disconnected at some point? So you need to start planning from now to the future, how you're going to deal with that. If I'm a parent, watch what are your kids doing? What kind of a content are they being exposed to on all the platforms, by the way? Just see what's going on. And those are the things that I think are going to be interesting. And we're going to know pretty soon on first whether there's buyers or whether there's also a willingness of ByteDance to divest.
It will be interesting. Professor Annette Alon-Beck from Case Western Reserve University School of Law, thank you very much for the time and the expertise. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Take care. Again, it's a topic that many people are going to be talking about when you have 170 million users on a platform and they suddenly hear that TikTok is about to be banned in the United States. People are going to take notice. So we always like to bring you experts as to what it means and what the timeline is. Our 3.5 hours of news starts at 3 o'clock, about an hour and 15 minutes from now on Channel 19. If anything else breaks, it'll be right here on our digital platforms. Until then, I'm Dan DeRose with 19 News. Have a good afternoon.
19 News is everywhere. Download our CTV apps and follow us on social media at Cleveland 19 News.